All right, well, welcome back to Exhaust Sports Auto. I am once again back here at Cary Imports to do another legendary vehicle, of course. This is the 2002 Mercedes S500. So if you have had any dreams or aspirations of becoming Johnny Sack, well, here's your chance. This is your opportunity because Cary Imports is housing this vehicle, and I am now able to do a review on it for you guys. So let's see what this bad boy's got. Let's not get a little too carried away here. You know, it's a lot of power, you know, a lot of responsibility, right? Well, before I get started with this review, I will leave all of their information for Cary Imports down in the description box below, because who knows, one of you lovely subscribers might be interested in purchasing this thing because it only has 92,000 miles on it. This is actually less miles than the 2013 S-Class that I actually reviewed here, so that's quite interesting. That kind of shows you just how well maintained and kept that this vehicle really was. But enough of that, let's get right into this review. And I guess I'll briefly talk about the looks because this is the 02 model. I believe the 03 is when it got like this facelift look to it. So the looks will slightly change if you get a newer model. However, you know, this, focusing on this particular model, the looks of this classic Mercedes, classic just big body luxury sedan, and you know, perfect for a mob boss, of course, or an underboss if you're Johnny Sack. I think this is aged extremely well, and I think most would agree with that. And as I'm speaking about the looks of this car, an AMG GTS has just rolled up. Nice, not bad. But this is going to age better than that GTS, so that's very good. But like always, you can decide for yourself how this thing looks to you. I am more concerned about how does this bad boy drive. I've recently reviewed two of these like kind of older big body vehicles, one of which was the 2003 LS430 Lexus, and I've also reviewed a 2002 Cadillac DeVille. And I was saying in the Cadillac DeVille video that that vehicle drove very similar to the 2013 S-Class. And honestly, now that I'm in this older model S-Class, you know, I'm a huge fan of these older vehicles, but dude, this thing is very similar to not only the newer 2013 S-Class, but it's also very similar to that Cadillac I drove. So that's very interesting how Mercedes has really kept the lineage of the S-Class very similar. I have not driven the 2014 to the current model S-Class, so I can't really speak on that, but the 2013, you know, fairly recent model year of this vehicle. And they do drive somewhat similarly. However, I think this does have hydraulic steering. Don't quote me on that. I'm just pretty sure it does. So the steering does feel a little bit more connected, and obviously it's nowhere near as fast as the newer S-Class, because this vehicle does utilize the 5-liter V8 that produces like 302 horsepower and 339 pounds-feet of torque, which isn't bad, and the thing weighs about 4,100 pounds. Definitely not even as quick as my LS460 that I own, so that's something else to keep in mind. Not the fastest vehicle, but definitely in line. Actually, definitely faster than the LS430. So if you're kind of cross-shopping those vehicles, this is definitely faster than the LS430 and the Cadillac as well. The ride quality is actually very similar to the what's it called, the 2002 Cadillac. Let's see how this bad boy handles these turns a little bit. The body roll is definitely existent. It's far more than the Cadillac, but these older vehicles, they're still a ton of fun to drive. It's like a slightly looser version of that 02 E55 that I also drove here. So I've driven quite a few of these older vehicles, and I've always loved the feel of them because the steering is just so responsive, and the sensation of speed is pretty excellent as well. And that's something that just the new like vehicles just cannot replicate. Like, there's just a sense of fun driving these like older vehicles that the new you know, luxury cars, they're so isolated, and that's kind of what they're supposed to be. But you know, people like to drive their cars too, and it's just fun to have some type of feel to the vehicles, you know what I mean? Gets up to speed just fine. It's not a rocket ship. You do have a good surging sensation out of this motor. It's not super isolated in here. There's definitely some tire noise coming in. Wind noise, not too much. I mean, obviously it's like double pane glass like you would expect out of an S-Class. Comfort, of course. I mean, if you've seen all of the generic, you know, big media reviews, you would know everybody says that these things ride really well. But also it drives really well too. And I guess we're kind of jaded nowadays because, you know, back then the sports cars had a lot more feel to them. But now sports cars or, you know, any new car really lacks a lot of feel. So getting into these older vehicles, we're like, oh, it has so much feel and sensation to it. And it's true. So if you're used to driving newer vehicles, even a newer sports car, you will definitely actually appreciate what these older vehicles have to offer. And the vehicle, you know, it just tracks straight. There's no weirdness to the drive. There's a couple of slight creaks and rattles, but honestly not too out of the ordinary for like an older luxury vehicle. They all kind of do that. But like I've proven multiple times, these vehicles are a treat to drive for sure, and it's something that I think anybody can get into these older vehicles and really appreciate, from the steering, from this naturally aspirated power, which is also going away. Like the newer S-Class, like, yeah, it was super fast, but that turbo lag was ridiculous, and by the time those turbos kicked in, the fun kind of went away, even if you do get surged like really well in those vehicles. I really do prefer this naturally aspirated power, and just the smoothness of this engine, it's just next level for sure. Like when I was idling in this car, or like when I was just sitting stationary in it, you can't even tell that this motor is working. I don't think it's quite as smooth as the LS430's engine, but it is still pretty damn smooth, like almost like my LS460, honestly. So that's something to keep in mind. So with that, let's go ahead and let's take a look at this interior. Okay, so climbing inside of the majestic S500. So obviously you can expect plenty of leather, but you may also expect some other things which you weren't expecting, and that is soft closing doors. Yes, this vehicle does have it, and it does still work, which is remarkable to me. Actually, everything in this vehicle still works, and all the electronics, as you can see, there's a ton of buttons in here, which I'll try to go through. I mean, it's not going to be a super in-depth overview, but I'm just saying I'll try to, you know, show you the important stuff. But there is a lot of stuff going on here. There's no stupid check engine lights. This is an extremely clean automobile. Actually, I don't even think there's any accidents on this car. So yeah, this is definitely a well-kept example for sure. But this is a vehicle with 92,000 miles on it, and I'm glad to report that there is no splitting of the wood. The wood is still nice and clean, really nicely intact. That goes for everything here. Not as creaky and crunchy as the Cadillac, or actually even the new 2013 S550 that I checked out. So that has a lot to do with the fact that Mercedes was just on a whole nother timetable back then. It was much the same with the 02 E55 I reviewed, Carmelo Soprano enhanced essentially. And that vehicle was also extremely tight, extremely well done, and it also had a nice pathetic little infotainment screen, which do not mock that, because back then, 02, you were like, wow, you were something special. You were a dictator, you were a rapper, you were something important back then if you had a TV screen. That's what 50 Cent was rapping about. You know, he's got a little TV screen in his car. Yeah, that was that, which is, of course, now commonplace and everything. It's actually like 10 times the size. Speaking of 10 times the size, if you stepped up to the 03 to like 06 or whatever, this is all completely changed. Like the whole vehicle gets a little refreshed. That includes the interior. But I like the way this sits now. And another thing to mention with this model was that this vehicle got the 5-speed automatic, which I believe is a little bit more reliable than the 7-speed. And because this is the 5-speed out on the road, there's no stupid gear hunting. This is an excellent amount of gears to have in a vehicle, so I'm very happy to report there. Another little driving dynamic thing that I noticed with this vehicle is that it's got drilled, like, you know, holes in the rotors of the brakes, which I found kind of interesting. Very, very motorsport inspired, of course. You know, the braking feel in this vehicle is absolutely excellent, so, you know, I can't really complain about that. Going back to the interior a little bit, you know, these seats extremely plush and supportive. Maybe not as much as the new ones, but it is definitely a big couch-like experience. Very nice, very comfortable, and the leather has held up pretty well too. So there is that, and overall the wood, like I mentioned, is pretty good too throughout the vehicle. The steering wheel is kind of like a thin rimmed, similar to the Cadillac I was in. It's pretty nice. Your grip and grain here, so that's pretty cool. I do like this wheel. You do have some track selection options. You can operate your little center gauge cluster menu here with this, and volume controls as well, so it's pretty nice. Now, getting into some of these other features I really like, auto lights, which I absolutely love, and this vehicle does have like the classic Mercedes, like all the seat controls are up here, but you also have like some pulse control massage thing down here, which is interesting, and your mirror controls are here as well. Heated and cooled seats. This is an S-Class, of course, definitely a pioneer, and the S-Class always brings something new to the table every time a new one comes out. This is one of the first few vehicles to come with heated and cooled seats. Obviously the aromatic air suspension, which I'll get to in a bit. There's other new features. Oh yeah, like the radar cruise control stuff, obviously infotainment, and it was definitely a pioneer for many things. So the heated and cooled seats, definitely one of them, and it does have memory seats, which is also great to see. And you have your window switches actually down here, which is interesting, and as well as your trunk release buttons. It's all kind of down here, and they're all one touch up and down for the windows, which I absolutely love. That's fantastic. And just opening and closing this door, it's got a nice solid feel to it, which I really appreciate. Plenty of little storage cubby spaces all throughout here, which is fantastic. Lots of space in here as well as a little coin holder thing, very early 2000s. Your glove box, kind of inadequate, but it's got your little books and stuff in there. The rest of the space in this vehicle is pretty good, so I'm not really complaining too much about that. I will show you the keys real quick. It does come with the 2 keys, and pretty plain Jane. I will start it up here though. You do stick this whole thing in here, which I like. Starts right up, no issues. It's got this thing, comes down very slowly, but I do like it. This thing is idling at nearly 500 RPM, and it is so smooth. One interesting thing is the Acura TLX that I recently reviewed. It idles around like 700 RPMs, which this kind of is too, and the whole like steering wheel and everything would kind of vibrate. In here, nothing. It is so smooth. I absolutely love it. It's a great engine. Sounds really good too, actually. There's a lot of like induction noise coming through, and the red line is like right at 6,000 RPM, so definitely not a rever for sure. But regardless, like I mentioned in the driving segment, plenty of balls for this vehicle to get up and going. Gas mileage might not be so great though. This is right at like 16 city, 23 highway. Not the best, but is what it is. Now, what are kind of the negatives? Well, some of these pieces, of course, didn't really wear the best. Definitely some crunchy noises, even with the seats a little bit. That's kind of just the unfortunate thing. But I will say, though, these Benzes, definitely, like these older Benzes in particular, hold up much better than some of the other luxury cars. So that's pretty good. But this, I can tolerate this far better than that Cadillac. Dude, if you saw that Cadillac review, oh my gosh. That Cadillac was creaking and rattling like crazy. It was unacceptable, really, when you put your hands on it. But this, not too bad, but definitely a couple of panels that need some work, but not the end of the world, honestly. I kind of forgive it for the age and the miles of it. Even the Airmatic, which this vehicle is equipped with, even that works. And I'm actually going to leave a link to a video that I saw recently before I came to do this review. It was done by a gentleman by the name of Daniel, I think. I'm sorry, I will definitely leave that in the description box below. And he did his own ownership review. It was like a 40-minute video, but it's a great watch if you're definitely interested in purchasing one of these vehicles. He goes through absolutely everything you need to know. Definitely a lot of little nuanced things, like with the air suspension. He was saying that, like, just pour some epoxy glue over it, that way it doesn't, like, leak out or whatever. So watch his video. He goes through a lot of little things like that. So this vehicle has held up pretty well for him. Even the parts and the maintenance, it doesn't cost a fortune, which is fantastic. So owning this vehicle in the long term should not be an issue. And like I mentioned, this vehicle drives extremely well. It rides pretty good too. So the air suspension, definitely doing a good job. With that pretty much covers everything that I want to mention with this front half of the interior. Let's go ahead and let's take a look at the rear seats now. All right, well, stepping in here like I'm 50 Cent, like I'm a ball player, and that's kind of how you feel when you step into these things, because this is why you get these big body vehicles, man. I think this might be the most amount of space I've had in the back of a sedan. This is really insane, more than my LS, more than just about anything, dude. Like crossing my legs, oh, no prob for sure. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that Mercedes only makes like long wheelbase cars. There's no small wheelbase or medium bases. There's only a big base in these big body Benzes. So I really respect that. And that's a lot of the reason why if you're gonna go after like a big body car, the Benz for sure will give you the most amount of space. So of course, any height, any length, no issues. I'm 5'11", the seat is set to my setting, and obviously sitting behind myself, no problem. That seat probably set to like a 6'3" person's height, and I can definitely sit there as well if I wanted to. HVAC, you got your insanely huge door with a bit of wood, nice. More HVAC controls or fans here as well. And one thing I got to show you guys, this is going to crack you guys up. Like, this is stupendous. You have your little audio Vox right here. If this is like 2 years ago, I would have broke this thing off and just sold it on eBay. That is absolutely fantastic. A little audio box with the little controls and stuff there, you know, because you know all the diplomats, you know, they need to watch some type of a children's cartoon from that screen, right? And that's very interesting. You have like this carpeted mirror here to see yourself, which is pretty nice too. I will say though, you know, a lot of the stuff not held together the best, but like I mentioned, you know, I kind of forgive it being an older German car. This is kind of all the older German cars were made like. And of course, the seat comfort and the seat quality, absolutely superb. Really soft seats. You can do over 1 trillion miles back here. And you know, unlike the newer big body cars, when you bust this thing down the armrest, you don't get like a myriad of controls. It's not that new, you know what I mean? You do get a sunshade though, which is nice. You know, got plenty of space. It's just like most big body cars. You know, this is why I like reviewing them. It's spacious, it's comfortable, it's got everything you need. And I'll end off on the trunk space. The trunk space is huge, of course. It's massive. It fits bodies back there with an S, bodies with an S, that is. And absolutely no issues with trunk space. The opening is nice. And also, if you lift up the little carpet thing, you do have a full-size spare, and the battery is located there as well for better weight distribution for a 4,133-pound vehicle. So with all of those things established, let's go ahead and let's wrap this whole video up, shall we? All right, well, wrapping up my time with the 2002 Mercedes S500. So what are my conclusions on this vehicle, my overall thoughts? Well, it's like with most every older vehicle. I mean, they drive great. I mean, you just can't replicate that feel with the new, you know, electric steering vehicles and all that stuff. And also, you know, despite it being a big body car, like with all the features and all the isolation, well, it's really not that isolated actually. You definitely do get a pretty good sense of the road when you're driving this thing, and that's something that obviously cannot be said about the new luxury vehicles. So that's something I really absolutely appreciate with these vehicles. Obviously they're dirt cheap. You can get them really like, what is it, like $6,500. It's a vehicle that's aged extremely well. You know, everybody's, you know, complaining that the new cars, their grills, they're, you know, they look hideous or whatever. Well, here you go. This is an older vehicle. It's definitely not as overstated or whatever. It's understated luxury. Everybody still knows that you're a boss because the thing is still poking out of the bonnet there. You know, that little Benz logo. Absolutely love that. It's naturally aspirated, which is hard to find nowadays. I mean, it's literally just Genesis that's making a 5-liter V8 now. Even Lexus has went to a twin turbo V6. So this is a naturally aspirated 5-liter V8, and that's fantastic, super smooth. This particular car has no like stupid check engine lights or lights in general, so that's really fantastic. Really the only con with these cars is that the interiors don't really age that well. start creaking and rattling a little bit, but honestly, you can live with it because out on the road, they do still feel very sublime. Overall, just really nice, spacious, luxurious cars, but I mainly like them for the way they drive. And if you've owned an older vehicle, if you've driven one of these older cars before, you would kind of know what I'm talking about. I said this about the LS430, the E55, the old Cadillac. They all felt fantastic to me to drive. They don't feel like these big wallowy boats. They are in a sense, but they're also not the way that people over exaggerate them anyway. And I've really enjoyed my time with this car. I appreciate how this thing rides. A lot of that has to do with the fact that this thing is riding on those 16-inch chrome wheels, far from dubs. And it's got these nice Michelin tires on it too. So if you're interested in this vehicle, definitely consider hitting up Cary Imports. I'm going to leave all their information down below. And if you're new here, this is the end of the video. Consider subscribing if you found any kind of value with this review. I'd greatly appreciate that. And if you want to be a Patreon member, you can. I'll leave all that stuff down in the description box below. But that will conclude my time with this vehicle. Thank you very much for watching. Take care. Goodbye.